In this class, we will discuss about our functions. Okay, so how function works, how function is called. Okay, so function is always called according to its call. Okay, and like suppose if here I'll show you one example. If suppose any function is there, suppose in here, suppose this function is there. Okay, so if it is called, okay, suppose I will write here like this. So I'm calling this function over here. Okay. So this means I'm calling this function. So suppose here my function has one argument over here. So suppose I will give I'll give any name Anil suppose. Okay. And then I'm calling two times this function. Okay. Now I'm passing another, just a minute, sorry. So now I am passing another parameter, another argument over here. Okay, so suppose I will pass Akash. Okay, so here you can see in the first case we have passed Anil, and in the second case we have passed Akash. Okay, so the function is called from top to bottom. Okay, so first this function will be called, then this function will be called. Okay, so here we are calling this function two times. First we are passing Anil, and then we are passing Akash. Okay, so always in the last case when function is called, it will appear on the browser. Okay, so this my function will be called. Okay, means this result will be shown in your browser. Okay, so I will take one example and I will explain you. So I will create another file over here. So I'll give functions over here. Okay, like this. Now what I will do, I will create some functions over here. Okay, so I will write function, and then I will give any name to a function over here. Suppose my function, like this. And here I will pass suppose some argument name. Okay, you can give any argument name you want. Okay, so I will give name over here suppose. Okay, so this is like you can give any name you want. Okay, so I'm taking name over here. Now I want to call this function over here. Okay, so I will write three functions over here, then I will call these two functions. Okay, so this is the main function over here. Now I will write two more functions. Suppose this function like this. So I'm creating another function over here, and then we'll create another function. Second function. So I'm creating three functions over here. Okay. So what we'll do, we will here when we have this my function, I want to output the result. Okay, so what we want is we'll call this function from inside these two functions. Okay, and then we'll call these two functions later. Okay, suppose here what I will do is, suppose I want to output something. Okay, suppose I want to output this name over here. Okay, so this is the argument. Okay, so when we call this function, okay, suppose we'll call this function from inside here. Okay, like this, my function like this. Okay, so I will give suppose some name over here, Akash, like this, and then I'll also pass this function here, and I will give the name as Anil. Okay, so we are calling this function two times. First from inside this first function, and secondly from inside this second function over here. Okay, and in both the cases we are passing a different argument over here. Okay, means a different name. So what I will do inside this, what I will do, I will output the name in this. Suppose here I will make some here we'll output our result in this paragraph over here, PID equals to demo. Okay, so I will target that particular ID, that is demo ID, and I will output our result. Okay, so I will output this name. Okay, because this name is the argument over here, we have access to this Akash and Anil by this argument over here. Okay, so we'll simply output this name over here. So here you can see when I will write name like this, you can see the color over here of the name means it is not used. Okay, when we write like this, you can see the brightness increases of that argument. Okay, means this name argument over here is used. Okay, like this. So what we are doing is here we are taking a function and inside this we are taking our first argument, that is name. Okay, and we are calling this function two times. Okay, first from inside this function and second from inside this function over here. Okay, and in both the cases we are passing two different parameters, means we are passing two different arguments over here. Okay, and inside this what we are doing is we are outputting our result and we are storing that particular name in this demo id. Okay, now when we save this, nothing will happen because we are not calling this function. Okay, if we will not call this function will not be executed, and lastly this function will not be executed. Okay, so nothing happens. Okay, it is necessary to call this function over here. Okay, so for what we'll do, we'll first suppose here what I will do, I will first call this function, second function, like this. Okay, just a minute. Second function like this. Okay, so I'm calling first this second function that I've written after this first function. Now I will call this first function. Okay, so here notice the difference. Here we are writing this as the first function and then we are writing the second function, but when the call times comes, here we are calling this second function first and then the first function. Okay, so this we are calling first and then we are calling this first function. Okay, and let's save this. Here what we'll do, we'll change our path over here first. Here we'll change our path. Okay, now let's see what is the result in our browser. Okay, when we refresh this, so here you can see the result comes as Akash. Okay, so in this case, okay, here you can see we have our first function, we are calling this first function at the last. Okay, over here, so we are writing this function first, then we are writing this second function. Okay, so it is not actually, this function is the order is when we are calling that particular function. So okay, actually when we write this particular function, first this function is called and then this function is called. Okay, so this function will be the top priority. Okay, but when calling times comes, okay, this decides when when we have to call that particular function. Okay, so earlier I've told you that function is executed according to its call. Okay, so when you are, suppose this function is executed, okay, means the sequence is when they are called. Okay, if this function is called first, okay, so this function will be in the first place. Okay, then this function is called, then it is the top priority because it is coming in the last over here. Okay, so this is not according to this particular sequence in which we are defining that particular function, but according to that, according to the sequence they are called. Okay, so you can write in any manner. Okay, but when calling times comes, you have to, if you want to output this particular function, write this particular function in last. Okay, suppose here if I change the particular arrangement over here like this, now we are calling the first function first. Okay, so this function first and then we are calling this function. Okay, now our output will change here when we refresh this. So now it is coming as Anil. Okay, because in our second function this Anil argument is passed over here. Okay, so always keep in mind that the functions are executed in the sequence they are called, okay, not according to the sequence they are defined, okay, not according to it. When we are defining, suppose first we are defining this, then we are defining this, so it will not be executed according to the define when according to its arrangement, okay, it will be it will be executed according to its call, okay. So here we have uh, what we have done is, first we are taking a function, and inside this we are, and after that we are taking two more functions, okay. So inside the second function we are calling this first function over here, and with the with argument, okay, over here, and in the second function we are passing the same function, okay, means this my function over here with a different argument over here, okay. Now this function is called over here, these two functions are called, okay. So first this function is called, then this second function is called, okay. So the output will come of this second function over here, because it is written in the, it is called in the last, okay. So in this way this the function works, okay. Now I will explain you with one more example, okay. Now what I will do, I will comment these two functions, okay. Now I'll take another function over here, okay. Suppose function. So what I will do is I will add two numbers over here. So I will give a name as add, like this. So function add, okay. So inside this add function we want two numbers, okay. So we'll pass two numbers as an argument. So that is num1 and num2, okay. So for adding two numbers is required, okay. So we are taking two arguments over here, and inside this will use some of our code, means we want to add something, so we'll write our code over here. So what I'll do, I will take let sum equals to, so you can use also var over here, variable sum equals to num1 plus num2, okay. So we are writing, we are adding these two numbers over here. Now we will return this result, okay. So we are returning this variable in which we are adding two numbers over here, okay. Now it's time to call this function, okay. So if we not call this function, this piece of code will not be executed that is inside this function, okay. So here what I will do, suppose I will call these two this function over here, and I will pass two numbers over here, because it has two arguments over here, num1 and num2, okay. So we'll have to give two arguments over here, so we are passing two numbers over here, okay. So if we simply call this function like this, okay, and suppose I have to, suppose I want to output it, I'll show you like this, document.getElement by id, and here what I will do, I will use dot inner html equals to add. So what I'm doing here is I want to output this result in our demo ID over here, okay. So I'll simply comment this out for now, okay. Here what we are doing, we are outputting this result over here in this demo ID in our browser. We'll save this, let's see. Here you can see we are getting 4 over here, okay. So suppose here I will change it to 5 and 8, okay. So we are passing two parameters, because here we are passing two arguments over here, okay, inside this add function. So when we are calling this particular function, we have to give two numbers, okay, two numbers or two elements, okay, because here we have two arguments, so it is necessary to pass two arguments over here, okay. So we'll refresh this. Now the result comes as 13, okay. Now what we will do is, suppose we want to store this function in a variable. Okay, suppose what I will do, I'll use variable result equals to, and now I will store this add function inside this result variable. Okay, suppose 8 and 5. Okay, I will comment this out for now. Now what I will do here, I will execute this result. Okay, inside this function over here. Okay, suppose I will, like, here you can see it is taking one argument over here. Okay, so we'll pass this. We have to pass this one argument. Suppose we'll call this function. Okay, my function over there, and here you can see I will change it to res. Okay, it is a short form of result. Okay, you can give any name you want. Okay, so here I am passing one argument over here, so it is necessary to pass something over here. Okay, that is one argument. So what I want to pass is, I will pass this variable over here. Okay, here I will pass this result like this. Okay, so here I will pass this result, this variable, into this function. Okay, so here we are writing a function. Okay, and then we are storing it in a variable, and we are passing this variable to this function. Okay, this my function over here, because we are taking one argument over here, that is res. So it is necessary to pass something, means one argument over here. Okay, so it is necessary to pass one argument to this function. Okay, so suppose let's save this, and here we are passing res, so it is necessary to pass res over here also. Okay, in order to get the correct result. Okay, so we are adding two digits over here, that is 8 and 5. Okay, so let's save this. So we are getting 13 over here. Okay, so suppose here I will change to 10 like this. Now we should get the result as 15. Okay, so this is the way we can pass our functions. Okay, so here we are passing this function inside this function. Okay, so this is the way. Okay, so now you can see in the previous case when we were using callback functions. So this is the same case. Okay, so now we'll use a callback function. Okay, so here we'll use our callback function. So actually I will show one more method to solve this function over here. Okay, here we can do one more thing. Okay, so I will simply remove this. Okay, now what we will do, inside this function we'll simply call this function. Okay, we'll simply call this function, means this line, this code will be executed. Okay, over here when we'll call this function. Okay, suppose I not return this some variable, what I will do, I'll simply call this function over here, and inside the argument I will pass this sum over here. Okay, so this sum over here, because we have our argument res over here. Okay, so one argument is passed over here, so it is necessary pass one argument when we are calling this function. Okay, so what it does is it will execute this line of code over here, means it will target this demo id and output the sum. Okay, this sum over here. Okay, so res means sum over here, so sum is the result of these two numbers. Okay, now we are calling this function, so we are not calling this function over here, this add function. Now we'll call this function add, and we'll take two numbers over here like this. So we have two numbers as an argument over here, so it is necessary to pass two arguments over here. Okay, so let's save this and let's check whether it gives the result or not. Refresh this, so we are getting 7. Okay, because 3 plus 4 is 7. Okay, so we are passing 3 and 4 as an argument. So this also works. Okay, so what we are doing here, we are taking a function, we are taking two arguments inside that function, num1 and num2, and inside that we are adding these two numbers and we are storing it in a variable. Okay, and inside that function we are passing another function. Okay, so this function over here, and inside that function we are passing some one argument name as res. Okay, and we are passing this sum inside this function, means this piece of line will be executed. Okay, so here this this function, my function, is called. Okay, so it will add these two numbers and output it in our demo id over here. Now we have to call this function, add function over here. Okay, so in this next step we are calling this function. Okay, so it completes all of the part. Okay, so in this way we can also do our function. Okay, we can write our function. Okay, now we will use a callback function to write the same function. Okay, this same function, how we can write using the callback function. So first we'll know what is a callback function. Okay, so a callback function is a function when it is passed as an argument to another function. Okay, so here what we'll do, we will copy this line of code over here and we'll paste the same code over here. Okay, now what we'll do here, the call, what is the definition of callback function? So a callback function is a function passed as an argument to another function, like this. Okay, so this is the definition of a callback function. Okay, so here we'll pass a function as an argument to another function. Okay, so what we'll do, I will comment this out over here. Okay, so we will pass this function, okay, as an argument to this function, means in this argument we will add this function. Okay, so we will add this function inside this function argument, okay, by any another name. So here what I will do, I will use a callback name. Okay, so you can give any name. So it is a callback function, so I'm using this callback name over here. Okay, so it will be easily understood that it is a callback function. Okay, so we want to pass this function as an argument to this function over here. Now in which way we can use this callback? So here I will remove this my function over here. Now we are passing this callback over here. Okay, so we'll use this callback function, means we'll use this argument over here, and so this is a, so we'll not use parentheses over here like this. Okay, so when we are writing, when we are passing a call, just a minute, when we are passing a callback function in the argument, we don't have to pass parentheses over here. Okay, you just pass a reference to that callback function. Okay, so we'll simply use write callback. Okay, now we'll execute this function. Okay, means we'll call this function, and inside this you can see we have our argument. Okay, so we have one argument over here, that is res. So it is necessary to pass one argument inside this callback. Okay, so we'll simply pass this some variable over here like this. Okay, now here we have this callback function is this function over here, this my function over here. Okay, so we are passing this function through argument inside this function. Okay, so for accessing this function we are passing this function as an argument. Okay, So here we are calling this function callback, okay, by the name of callback, and inside this we are taking one argument. So here we are passing one argument over here, and here we are taking one argument, that is sum. Okay. Now, well, we are calling this function. Now it's turn to call this function add. Okay. So here you can see we have three arguments over here, and inside this we have only two arguments. Okay. So here how can we know that which function it is using? Okay, what is this callback? Okay, so we have to pass the name of this function over here. Okay, so here we'll pass that particular function with no parenthesis. Okay, we are not executing a function, we are simply passing it as a parameter. Okay, so here inside this we are passing this argument, we are passing this function as an argument by the name of callback, and inside this callback we are passing this sum over here. Okay, now we are not knowing which is the callback, okay, which function is the callback. Okay, so when we call this add function, so here we'll pass this my function name over here, so it will know that this function will know that it is calling this function over here. Okay, so we are passing the name of this function inside this function. Okay, so now let's save this and check whether it works or not. So we'll refresh this. So here we are getting our result as 7. Okay, because we are passing 3 and 4 over here. Okay, so here I'll explain you from the start what we are doing. We are taking, suppose here we are taking one function. Okay, and we are passing three arguments over here. Okay, so here we are passing three parameters. Okay, num num2 and a callback function. Okay, which is this function we don't know yet. Okay, so we are passing a callback function. Okay, now inside this we are taking a variable sum, and we are storing adding these two numbers, and we are storing it in this sum variable. Okay, now it's time to use this callback function. Okay, so we'll write a function, that is function my function, and we'll take one argument, pass one argument over here. Okay, so we are writing as res. Okay, so you can take any name you want. Okay, I'm taking res, that is the short form of result. Okay, so here what we are doing, we are outputting it in this id. Okay, we are outputting this res inside the demo id, that is the paragraph. Okay, p tag, and here we have res. Okay, so that is the argument. So inside this callback, here we want to pass this my function inside this callback. Okay, in place of this callback we want to pass this function. Okay, so we'll use this callback function, and we'll pass this sum variable inside this argument over here. Okay, now it's time to call this function over here. Okay, now when we call this function, we have three parameters over here. Okay, three, so we are passing these two numbers, and now we want to know which is this callback function. Okay, so we'll pass that particular function which we want to use as a callback function. Okay, so we are passing the name of that particular function which we want to use as a callback function. Okay, so we are passing my function over here. Okay, so this is the way we can use our callback function. Okay, so now the question arises, when when we want to use the function as a callback. Okay, so here we when we want to use our callback. Okay, so the question is when to use a function as a callback. Okay, so this is the question. Okay, so we generally use callback functions in asynchronous function. Okay, where one function has to wait for another function. Okay, suppose you give one request to a server. Okay, now it is taking some time to process that particular data. Okay, and then it is giving us our response. Okay, then we are giving another request, then it is solving that particular function. So here we are waiting for that particular time till the server is getting our response. Okay, so when we are using asynchronous requests, okay, here I am not using asynchronous functions, I am talking about asynchronous requests. Okay, so when we use asynchronous request, we can give 10 requests in a row. Okay, so the server will, we don't have to wait for the server response. Okay, so the server will give the response one by one. Okay, but when we use synchronous request, we have to wait for the server response, then we'll give one request, then it will return our response. Okay, so it will be a time taking process. Okay, but when we use asynchronous request, we don't have to wait for the server response. Okay, so here we'll use this callback, we'll generally use this callback function in our asynchronous functions. Okay, so now we'll use our asynchronous functions. Okay, so here what I will do, I will comment this out, and I will make one more file over here, and I will give the topic as asynchronous request, like this. Okay, so here in this file we'll talk about our asynchronous request, or sorry, asynchronous functions. Okay, here. So here in the previous case, you can see here when we are using this function. Okay, so when we are reloading the page. Okay, so here when we reload this page, as soon as we reload this page, our result appears. Okay, so we don't have to wait for that particular response. Okay, we don't have to wait for certain time. Okay, so in order to manually wait, okay, we'll use a function that is set timeout function. Suppose upon reloading we will wait for, suppose, 5 seconds. Okay, then the result should come. Okay, so we'll manually provide that time. Okay, means 5 seconds inside that particular set timeout function. Okay, so how can we use that set timeout function? Okay, so what we'll do, we'll write a function. Okay, suppose here we'll copy this function over here, copy this same function. Okay, so I'll copy the same function over here. Now what we'll do, I will remove this argument over here, and I will simply output a text over here, hello, like this. Okay, now what we want is, we want to wait for, suppose, 5 seconds. Okay, and then we want to execute this function. Okay, so how can we use our set timeout function? So it is simple. So we'll simply use this set timeout function over here, like this, and inside this it takes two parameters. Okay, first is the name of that particular function in which we want to execute this timeout. Okay, so like this, my function, and then it takes the time. Okay, means if you want to delay the execution by 5 seconds, so it will take it in milliseconds. Okay, so here we are passing it as 5000 milliseconds, means 5 seconds. Okay, now if we save this, here we have to change the path name index28.js. Okay, so we are writing a function inside this, we are outputting hello inside this demo id, and what we are doing is, we are using this set timeout function, and we are mentioning this function, and we are delaying the execution by 5 seconds. Okay, suppose here we'll save this. Okay, here what we'll do, we'll refresh this page, and after 5 seconds, you have to wait for 5 seconds, then the result will come. Okay, So here you can see after 5 seconds this result comes. Okay, suppose I will make it as 2 seconds over here. Okay, so we are manually changing the timing. Okay, after which we want our result. Okay, suppose here I will click on this reload page, and after 2 seconds the result will come. Okay, so after 2 seconds this result means this function is executed and this result comes over here. Okay, so we can manually do this, mention this timing over here. Okay, so here we'll use this set timeout function in our another functions. Okay, so we know how do we use, now we know how do we use this set timeout function. Okay, we will write one more set timeout function over here. So we'll write another set timeout function, and here I will not pass this some function as an argument to this set timeout function, but we'll write our whole function inside this set timeout function. Okay, so I will write a whole function. Okay, like this. So I will write our function. Okay, so here, just a minute. And I will give like this. Okay, so we'll write a function over here, that is, so here we are passing this. Here I will comment this set timeout function, and here I will write this set timeout function. Okay, now what we will do, here I will cut it and paste it over here. Okay, so set timeout function comes first after this function over here. Okay, now inside this function what we'll do, we'll output a text. Okay, so here I will write my function like this, and inside this I will output a string. Okay, suppose hello, like this. Okay, so here what we'll do, here we are passing an argument inside this my function. Okay, so here we are writing, calling this, executing this my function over here. So we have to pass something. Okay, we have to pass argument over here. Okay, so I will pass a value. You can use any name over here. Okay, so this value is this hello over here. Okay, so this has one argument and this also has one argument. Now instead of this hello, we'll simply output value like this over here. Okay, so here we are passing our function. Okay, and in the previous case you can see in set timeout takes two parameters. Okay, one is the function and second is the timing. Means when if we want to delay that particular function by 2 seconds, so provide the timing as 2000. Okay, so we'll delay the timing as here 3 seconds. Okay, so the second parameter is the timing. So here the first is the function. Okay, so here we are writing a function, and inside this we are simply passing a string over here. Okay, and inside this function here we are passing the value with the help of argument. Okay, that is this value parameter over here, value argument. Okay, we are passing this value into this my function. From here we are calling this function. Okay, so we are passing this string by the help of this value argument. Okay, and we are outputting this value inside this demo id over here. Okay, so in the previous case we are passing this function, so this is kind of a callback function. Okay, so because we are passing a function as an argument to another function. Okay, and here we are calling this function inside this set timeout function. Okay, you can see we are calling this function, my function over here, and we are calling it from set timeout function. Okay, so we are calling a function from another function, means it is passed as an argument to another function. Okay, this function is passed as an argument to this set timeout function. Okay, now we'll save this. Let's check whether the result comes or not. Okay, suppose when we refresh and after 3 seconds the result should appear. Okay, so here you can see after 3 seconds hello appears on our screen. Okay, so this is the way we can use our set timeout function. We can use asynchronous functions. Okay, so we can set our timing and we can manually set the timing after which we want to execute our function. Okay, so this is all for asynchronous functions. Now we'll move on to our promises. Okay, so ES6 actually the ES6 version provides a promise object over here. Okay, so we'll now learn that particular thing. Okay, so promise is actually a JavaScript object. Okay, so here how can we write our promise? Okay, so promise object. Okay, so basically here we'll see our syntax first. Okay, so how can we initialize our promise object? Okay, so we'll use let promise equals to, with the help of new keyword we can initialize our promise. Okay, so like this. Okay, so we can use this syntax to initialize our promise object over here, and inside this promise takes two parameters. Okay, actually here I will write a function. Okay, so inside this function it will take two parameters, whether the result means whether the result is resolved or it is rejected. Okay, here you can see it takes two parameters, that is resolve and the second is reject. Okay, means here the means that execution is resolved or it is rejected. Okay, so I'll pass two parameters over here. Okay, now what I will do, I will give call this, we have to call this resolve and reject. Okay, so this resolve will be called when there is the successful execution. Okay, and this reject will be called when when any error comes. Okay, so these are the two cases when we use a promise. Okay, so these are the two cases that happen. So upon successful execution, this will be called, and when an error comes, this reject will be called. Okay, so these are the two things. So now here we get three properties which our promise object provides, that is pending, fulfilled and rejected. Okay, sorry, only two properties it provides. Okay, that is the state and result. Okay, so state and result, so these are the two properties. Okay, promise properties, so these are the two properties that promise gives us. Okay, so this state actually is this, that the promise means that the execution, here I am talking about the promise. Okay, promise means the execution. Okay, so whether it is completed or not, so it is pending or it is fulfilled or it is rejected, so all this comes under state. Okay, and result holds, suppose here what I will do, I will give names. Okay, so pending, fulfilled and rejected, so these are all the states. Okay, and the results are, suppose when the promise is pending, so it will return the result as undefined. When it is fulfilled, so it will give a value, so suppose it will give a value, and when the promise is rejected, it will give an error. Okay, so these are the two properties, that is the state and the result. Okay, in the state we have these properties pending, fulfilled and rejected, and the result, if it is a pending promise, then the result comes as undefined. When it is a fulfilled promise, then it returns our value. When it is a rejected promise, then the result comes as an error. Okay. Now we'll see how we can use our promise in our function. Okay, in our regular functions. So here we'll use our this function over here. Okay. So here we'll use this function. We'll copy this. Now here what we'll do, we'll remove this parameter and I will simply output our hello world like this. Okay. So here what we'll do now, we have to initialize our this promise object over here. Okay. So we'll simply copy this and we'll paste this like this over here. So inside this we are executing a function and it takes two parameters. Okay, that is the resolve and reject. Okay. Now inside this promise we have to write our set timeout function. Okay. So this function over here. Okay. So simply cut it and paste it over here. Okay. Now what we'll do, we'll simply call this. So we are calling this function my function. Okay. So we are calling this my function. So here we have removed our, so we have it, just a minute, we have to pass a value over here. Okay. So simply pass this as a parameter. Okay. So we are passing this value. So we are passing this value as a parameter to this set timeout function. Okay. So we don't have access directly of this hello world. So we are passing it as a parameter. Okay. So here you can see inside here we have our this piece of code like this. Okay. So we have done it earlier. What we are doing here, we are writing a function and inside that function we want to output something. Okay. And what is this value? Okay, so this is the value over here, because when we call this function over here we are passing an argument and here this is the first argument. Okay, that is the value and here we are outputting this particular value inside this demo id. Okay, so this is the value, that is the hello. Okay, so same thing we have done here. Okay, we are passing this set timeout function inside this promise. Okay, if this promise is resolved, then give us this value over here. Okay, so how can we suppose, how can we check that promise is resolved? Okay, so we'll simply use this promise variable over here, promise dot then, like this. So this then is used when there is a successful means the promise is resolved. Okay, so we'll use then like this. Okay, then we will use our function like this. Okay, then we'll pass a parameter, that is the value parameter. Okay, so we are passing this value over here. Okay, like this, and then we'll copy this line of code over here. So we are passing this function inside this promise. Okay, so here you can see this is the same thing over here. Okay, here you can see we are passing a function that takes two parameters, resolve and reject. Okay, so we are passing this object as if we have a successful execution, if this promise is resolved, then use this promise dot then. Okay, if this function is if this promise is resolved, then return us this function. Okay, so I will comment this code over here. We'll also comment this code and over here this code. Okay, so if we check this now, we should get our hello world printed on our browser. Okay, so if we check this and we refresh this, so after 2 or 3 seconds our hello should come. Okay, so here we are not getting our hello. because just a minute, we are getting some error over here. We'll first check what is the error. So here what we are doing is we are passing a wrong function name. Okay, so here we don't have my function over here. Okay, so we have commented it out. So we have to pass this resolve parameter over here. Okay, so we'll use our resolve like this. Okay, because we are using dot then. Okay, so it is resolving this particular promise. Okay, so here we are using this resolve. So because and then we are using promise dot then. Okay, so now if we check and save this, so after 3 seconds we should get our result. Okay, we'll wait for 3 seconds. Now you can see our hello is displayed in our browser. Okay, so what we are doing, so in this way, this is the syntax of initializing a promise. Okay, so it takes two parameters. One is the resolve. If the promise is resolved, it will call this thing, this resolve over here, and if any error comes, it will call this reject. So we are not calling this reject right now, we are only resolving the promise. Okay, so inside this promise we are executing a function in which we are taking resolve and reject, our two parameters over here. Then inside this we are calling a function, a set timeout function, and inside that if we are resolving this particular function, so we'll pass hello, means we are passing any string. Okay, so we are passing any string to this resolve parameter over here. So this is the function over here, and then we are resolving this function. Okay, with the help of promise dot then. So here if we are using resolve, so you have to use dot then. If we'll use reject like this, so you have to use catch like this. Okay, so for resolve you will use then, and for reject you will use catch. Okay, so we are then telling the promise that it is resolved, so it is using promise dot then, and it is executing a function, that is this function over here. Okay, so this function, so it takes an argument, that is this hello string over here. So it is passed according to this value. Okay, so here we are passing an argument, that is this hello string, and we are outputting it inside this demo id over here. Okay, so in this way we can use our promise. Okay, so we have seen our how we can use our functions and how we can use our promise. Okay, now so in this lecture I will keep it till here only. In the next lecture we will see the use of classes, how we can use and implement our class. Okay, so I will finish the lecture here only.